to ERAS. I've been a member since 1983, which probably makes me one of the longest standing members in the room, I think, isn't it, with you, Peter?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We can check that up.
Yeah, that's interesting.
I think I beat you slightly.
I think you beat me to it, yeah.
72.
Yeah. What I want to talk to you about today, and I'm pretty sure I've spoken to the Society about 10 years ago about Aldborough, is to bring you up to date with where we are with the work at Aldborough. This is a slight experiment in as much as I'm going to bring it right up to last summer's work. So the second part of the talk today is stuff I haven't used before, and I haven't actually seen most of the slides on the screen before. So keep your fingers crossed, but it's hot off the press. And as my friendly detectorist team sitting near the front of the room here will say, last season the excavation did look particularly spectacular. So I hope you're going to enjoy this. What I want to do is to start off by just introducing Aldborough to you, then talk about the survey work that we've done in the area, and then focus in on the 2019 to 2023 excavations. For those of you, none of you really need much introduction to Aldborough. Aldborough is the Roman town of Isurium Brigantum. That is the capital of the Brigantes under Roman rule. It means that it was the administrative centre of much of northern England during the Roman period. There's a lot of debate about what area was covered by the civitas of the Brigantes, but it's pretty clear that excluding the territory of the Parisii, your home territory, from the Vale of York and the moors across the Pennines to the Irish Sea coast and roughly up to Hadrian's Wall was the territory occupied by the Parisii. So it's a huge part of Roman Britain. The Roman town is one that, for rather odd reasons, didn't develop into a modern settlement. There's a major estate centre there recorded at Doomsday. The church is an Anglo-Saxon period dedication. The extant church is 13th century. The village was there then at Doomsday, but it didn't develop in the post-medieval period as a major settlement. It remains as quite a tight village, largely because from the Elizabethan period onwards it was a rotten borough. Aldborough returned 2 members of parliament with 14 electors. It was owned from the early 18th century. It's democracy for you. It was owned by the Duke of Newcastle from the early 18th century until he sold it to the present estate landowners, the Lawson family, in 1832 after the Great Reform Act, when they could no longer return 2 members of parliament, so it wasn't worth owning. The Lawson family, Andrew Lawson, from the 1820s to his death in the 1850s, explored the archaeology of Aldborough, excavated a whole series of mosaics and other things which were incorporated into his garden. But it's remained quite a quaint village. That's the manor house there. And after Andrew Lawson's death in the 1850s, comparatively little archaeological work was done on the site. And there have been various lords of the manor who've been more or less keen on archaeology. We're very lucky now that Sir Andrew Lawson Tancred is an enthusiastic supporter of archaeological work, and it's through his generosity that we've been able to do our work on the town. But because when we started in 2009, there was comparatively little systematic knowledge of the archaeology of Aldborough, we set out, Peter said, Roseferry and I set out to look at the site using a combination of remote sensing techniques as well as looking at the previous archaeological excavations and antiquarian work. And our main remote sensing work combined the use of magnetometry, which is familiar to many of you. Must use the pointer on the screen. In the period from 2009 to 2016, we surveyed the area of the Roman town, and I hope you can just about pick out the defences of the town there, and the area between the town and the river up here, and the immediate environs of the town, in order to understand how the town fitted together. Subsequently, we have done large-scale magnetometry on the surrounding areas of the town. And as will be familiar to many of you, magnetometry sometimes works brilliantly, it sometimes doesn't. The instance of Aldborough, it worked very well indeed. What you see on the left is Rose's interpretative map of the features on the geophysics superimposed on the Ordnance Survey map. And in the box, we've got an example of the results of the magnetometry and a blow-up of part of this area in Rose's interpretive plan. So what we were able to do was to map the archaeology very effectively and link that with the not only the area inside the town walls and so forth, which is partly covered by modern village, but also map rural settlement in the area round about. The objective of that is partly to understand how the town fits with its countryside, but also partly to see whether we could find any evidence for a pre-Roman centre at Aldborough, which at the moment we have not been able to do. What we can see are a few farmstead sites which seem to be largely integrated with the Roman landscape. The magnetometry work was very effective in the larger open areas. Within the village itself, in sort of smaller blocks of land, it wasn't always as effective as it might have been. And working with a friend and collaborator I've worked with a lot in Italy, Lieven Verdonk from Ghent University, we've done a certain amount of ground penetrating radar work in the centre of the village to try and understand the areas that are less susceptible to magnetometry, or where there is large-scale sort of surface interference through rubble deposits. This is an example of the GPR work that Lieven's done, and you can see this very fine. I'll go back through it more slowly now. We're going down from the surface through depth, and you can begin to see a few walls showing up, revealing on these images, just flick through it quickly, a large house with two hypocaust dining areas with apses. That's the best one. So the apses here, hypocaust floors here, and a main range running behind. So what we've been able to do is combining relatively small scale radar work with magnetometry is to get an overall framework for understanding the town. And alongside that, in the landscape around, we are aware that particularly down by the river, which runs just outside the town to the north, the Eure, there's been considerable landscape change. So the magnetometry runs out into sort of grey, featureless landscape, if you like. We know that that is because there is alluviation in the river valley. So working with a colleague from Cambridge, Charlie French, we did a large-scale coring project. Have any of you done coring? It's great fun. Auger down, pull out the soil. These are the slices, so you could get the soil history through time. In doing that, we were able to map the extent of the archaeology underlying the alluvium, and in one particularly wet spot that you could see in this field here down by the Eure, we hit on an earlier river channel, paleo channel, and that river channel produced a pollen core 4.5 meters deep through peat and up into the alluvium, and we've been able to therefore map the vegetation history of the area immediately close to the Roman town through that pollen work. There are a number of elements to this that are of interest. One of the things that I find most interesting here is that you could map the shift towards cereal cultivation through time, and we're seeing from the end of the last glaciation to around AD 1000 here. One of the things that comes clear is that arable cultivation outside the area of the Roman town continues continuously through the sub-Roman, post-Roman period. So one of the things we're getting from this is that the Roman town is established around the early Roman period, continues through time. In that period, what's happening at the end of the Roman era, here the agriculture is continuing through. And alongside the pollen work, we have, from the top part of this sequence, also looked at the chemical composition of the soil, which enables us to map pollution. And there is very large-scale pollution from lead smelting in this core, with evidence of lead smelting in the early Roman period and then in the medieval period. And in the early Roman period, that lead is there alongside silver. And this ties in with information from the Pennines, where we see the Hayshaw Moor lead ingots found in the 18th century that have a consular date dating them to AD 81, that Roman mineral exploitation in the Pennines was taking place within about 10 years of Roman annexation of this part of the world. In the medieval and post-medieval period, the lead from that part of the Pennines was exported via the River Eure via quays at Aldborough. And what we're suggesting from this is that in the Roman period the same was taking place. So this gives us one of the possible reasons why Aldborough is established where it was, in an area where there wasn't a pre-Roman centre very soon after Roman annexation. And our hypothesis for the foundation of Aldborough is that as the Roman army moves north in Britain in the period between 70 and 90. They locate the silver sources in the Pennines, and we have a trading community that is probably set up with people coming from outside this region, from southern Britain or the continent, establishing themselves at the point where the material from the Pennines can be put onto boats to take down the river to export to the Roman Empire. So the sort of places why Aldborough is where it is. Alongside this survey work, we've also done a job in bringing together all previous pieces of archaeological work from the town. And I think it's quite interesting to compare the map from, on the left here, from 1832, the end of Andrew Lawson's exploration of the site, with the distribution of archaeological interventions down to AD 2020, all mapped here. And actually, the amount of information we've got has sort of, increased quite a lot. There are just over 100 archaeological interventions, find spots and so forth that we were able to map. But the bulk of the really good work was done in the 19th century, and the amount that's been added by work, particularly in the middle of the 20th century, well, it wasn't done on a very good scale, is quite sobering. And we were able to do this not only where things do, but plotting and bringing together all the previous information from 1960s excavations, from gas main replacement, from 1770s excavation and so forth, and bring it all together and tie it in with the geophysics to give us a sort of baseline for understanding the development of the town. And using that evidence as far as possible to see how the town developed through time. But the limitation on those previous excavations is a lot of them were not very precise in their chronology, their dating, and a lot of them were rather small scale. So that's complemented by the survey evidence. But in order to get a better understanding of the development of the town through time, we agreed a programme of limited excavation with Historic England. This is a scheduled ancient monument, so we couldn't dig anywhere. What we agreed to do was to go back to places where excavations had taken place in the past and re-examine those, where possible, reopening old excavation trenches rather than doing a lot of new stuff. Our first intervention was that, I don't really want to say anything about today, was up in the northern part of the southern part of the town, inside the area now controlled by English Heritage and open to the public, where we reopened a trench that demonstrated that Andrew Lawson's excavations were accurately planned. We compared our excavation trenches with what he'd recorded, and that when they had been done, they had been backfilled properly so that the things that are recorded in those mid-19th century plans are still, to the best of our knowledge, there and safe. Our second intervention, one of our smaller but more adventurous ones, was to look at an area that was excavated in July 1770 and is recorded in a plan by Hargrove that shows the structures that were found, which is also reproduced in more or less the same picture in Gough's edition of Camden's Britannia in 1789. this reasonably interpreted as part of the forum of the town. The problem is that it lies right on the edge of one of the modern streets running through the settlement. So there was only a very small area on the grass verge of both between the road and the church wall that was available for excavation. But we managed to squeeze a trench in there, and that located the walls of the forum, these walls that had been mapped in 1770, and again showed that the plans of that period were absolutely accurate, but we were also able to go below foundation level down to the natural and establish the date of the forum at being founded around about AD 110 to 120, and also get to the bottom of the sequence and establish that there is activity in that part of the site around about AD 70, not long after or around the time of the annexation of this part of the Roman North. And from that, and from our radar survey in the area around the church, which picked up what we think are some of the other walls of the forum, we've been able to reconstruct the plan of the forum and also tie that into the development of the street grid of the town, where there's a shift from the primary road running east-west through the site, which seems to date to around about AD 70, and then with the street grid laid out, we suggested it was being laid out around about 120, but I'll come back to that later, at the same time as the forum, with the forum entrance facing up the new road to the bridge across the river to Hadrian's Wall. So the first couple of seasons of excavation, very small scale, hit some good archaeology and enabled us to tie one or two things down. In 2018, we turned to areas that were excavated in a not particularly systematic way in 1924, and we did a very small excavation up by the town wall in 2018, trying to identify a feature that is shown in the top right of the screen from the only records of the 1924 excavation, which we suspected might represent an earlier phase of the town. It was a slightly different angle to the street grid. The excavation actually proved that it wasn't an early phase of the town, but demonstrated that it was part of a very large building. You can see the excavated wall here that forms part of some very long buildings, about 80 metres long, which appear to be large warehouses, and the evidence dates those to the 3rd century. We suspect that those are warehouses associated with the Roman state's tax gathering system, the taxation in kind, and they're placed on the periphery of the town, presumably where they could be accessed easily from the road up to Hadrian's Wall. That very small excavation in 2018, which incidentally took place during that dreadful beast from the east of Easter 2018. So there are photographs of this trench covered in snow, so forth, dreadful. We then, in 2019, moved a little bit to the west to explore another area that was dug in or explored in 1924, and that is the main focus of the excavation. Since then, we dug 2019. We then had a gap for COVID in 2020, we've done 21 to 23, exploring a reasonably large trench, as you will see in some detail. The 1924 excavations were never published, and this is the only surviving plan. It's possible to understand what's going on, but it's not very clear. This is the town wall. This is the hedge running between two land ownerships. And this is the plan of the area that we came back to explore in 2019. What seems to have happened in 1924 is that the team, which was basically a local school teacher and some labourers and a few volunteers, were tracing the route of the Roman road as it came in from the river to the town, and they dug a series of trenches not much wider than the benches in front of you across the road. When they found it, they opened it up a little bit, and they've successfully traced the road through the fields. When they got into the Roman town, they explored, I think that's probably a polite way of saying it, the gate of the Roman town, and there are some photos of holes that revealed parts of the gate. And then as they came into the town, they seem to have been trying to do the same thing, tracing the street, but they found in one of their early trenches some nice pieces of reused stone, column bases, you can see at the bottom right here, and a Roman milestone was inscribed. And my guess is that what happened is they started finding this stuff and then sort of cleared more and cleared more and cleared more. And there are photos of the excavation that looks much more like a First World War battlefield than it does an archaeological site. And the plan sort of shows what they had exposed, but doesn't have trench edges and so forth to it. So when we arrived on the site in 2019, we, having found what were quite good trench edges in the previous season with the same excavators, we sort of assumed that the plan was probably not terribly accurate, but we would be able to see where they dug. When we cleared quite a large area, it was very, very, very difficult to see where the previous excavations had been. So we proceeded with just taking the archaeology apart. And over 4 seasons, we have revealed a very long and complicated archaeological sequence that runs from the post-Roman period, sometime in the 5th and 6th centuries, right back to the foundation of the town around about AD 70. And what I want to do is to take you not from the bottom upwards, but from the top down, just to see what we've got. And as I said at the beginning, this is slightly experimental. I've only just finished phasing the site, and the finds from this season haven't yet been really looked at. So happy to take you through it, but bear in mind that the story will probably change over the next couple of years as we work through the material. The first surprise is that the top of the sequence, when we stripped the topsoil off, we were down onto the surface of Roman Street pretty well straight away. And just to take you back a couple of slides to give you location, the trench that we cut is here. This is the field boundary running through, and the main road from the centre of the town to the north gate is running along there. The north gate is under here. That's the road up to Hadrian's Wall. The street grid is starting here, running to the south, and these are the sort of defences, the town wall, the walls here, and a mass of complicated external ditches. So the street we're looking at in the slide in a moment is this street, which is the most northerly street, the street grid. That is here, and the road to Hadrian's Wall is in all the images just outside the trench running along here. So we came down on the latest surface of the street pretty well straight away. When we cleared the area away from the street, so Roman road running up here, street here, we came down firstly onto a huge midden, a huge rubbish heap, which was I'm going to say rich, excessively rich in animal bone, masses and masses and masses of animal bone. And amongst that animal bone, there is evidence, quite extensive evidence, of antler working. Piece of red deer antler here. They're making things out of antler. Antler is quite good for radiocarbon dating because it's an annual growth, 1 year's growth. So we got radiocarbon dates off a couple of pieces of antler that push this into the early post-Roman period. That midden is overlying and presumably developing alongside, to some extent, a series of very big timber buildings that are built on sort of timber support. One of them is using huge lumps of stone as roof supports. One down here is using reused quern stones supports with a hearth in the middle here. So these are late Roman, early post-Roman timber buildings. They're very big. They're 5 meters plus wide, 10 meters plus long. So they're not sort of garden sheds. These are big, substantial timber halls. There is comparatively little dating evidence aside from radiocarbon date to go with that. But incorporated within that and reflecting what was found in the 1920s, quite a lot of spolia. This very nice column capital, decent size, sort of Tuscan style column capital. This is one of two huge stone basins that look as though they're for sort of processing crops or something. These are big plant pot size things, the sort of things that would go well in an 18th century garden, but they're good Roman ones, very narrow base that look as though they're used for pounding either crops or potentially sort of other solids, perhaps for metal processing or something. But the interiors don't show any chemical signatures of what they're used for. But they are, as in the 1920s, they're clearly using lots and lots of posh material from earlier buildings in this phase, and this extraordinary number of quern stones as well. That phase overlay in the southern part of the excavation trench a huge cobbled spread. This is part of that. The bit nearer to you on the screen down here has been it's been removed, but you could see this sort of cobbled surface. That cobbled surface dates to the middle of the 4th century. There are again evidence of timber buildings associated with it, and a complicated structure at the far edge over here, which may or may not be some sort of feature for watering animals or similar. That cobbled surface is built up against one of the walls of a stone building which is retained from previous phase, and I'll come back to in a moment. But this is the latest phase of this building when another building in this area has been demolished to be replaced with the courtyard. So if you imagine yourself coming in from Hadrian's Wall into Aldborough through the town gate, just as you come to the beginning of the built-up area of the town where the students are standing in the background on the street, they seem to have created a courtyard opening onto the street, which I suspect may be to do with sort of watering animals or whatever. When that cobbled courtyard was laid, along the edge of the building that had been retained, there was an extraordinary sequence of animal skulls, reminiscent, I think, Peter, of things that you've excavated. In this instance, they are nose to nose and sometimes nose to back of head. They're laid in a line along the edge of the wall. There are, and don't quote me on numbers on this, I think 13 horse skulls and 3 or 4 cow skulls. We've only had a few of them looked at properly so far, and should we say they weren't in their first flush of youth, but they're clearly very carefully and deliberately deposited for whatever reason, but clearly marking the boundary at the time that the courtyard was laid down. Going further down the sequence, if you strip that cobbled courtyard off, you have a series of big stone buildings. This wall here, which continues here, is running along the edge of the street. In the middle of the trench, there is another very well-established wall line, of which the wall is rebuilt on at least 3 or 4 occasions, and there is another wall line up here. What this appears to be is a series of strip buildings facing onto the street leading up to Hadrian's Wall here. So one building here, and then the next one running across here. And the more northerly of the building, the one that is retained to a later period, has at least one hypocaust room in it, which is a channeled hypocaust here, and possibly another hypocaust room here as well. All of these buildings are very, very heavily robbed. So the good building stone has been taken out, with this wall that is running under the street here. This is this year's excavation. Only the foundations survived. In this area there's a little bit of flooring and a little bit of the wall. When they laid that building out, which seems to be sometime in the 3rd century, there are several phases of the building, but prior to the first phase there is large-scale levelling of dumped material, and as with the 5th century dumping, I suspect that this isn't from this particular part of the town. It's probably rubbish that's being brought from elsewhere, and amongst that rubbish we have some very nice things. There's one of these pipe clay Venus figurines, the an almost intact clay lamp, very large volumes of glass vessels going in, and lots of pottery. So a levelling deposit made up of material indicating pretty high status activity within the town, but probably being sort of brought locally to that. And that dumping overlay a large-scale industrial complex. And the large-scale industrial complex is largely, in the visible archaeology, associated with blacksmithing. You can see the section on the left showing blacksmithing deposits. These are 30-40 centimetres thick, layer upon layer of smithing deposit with sand and clay interleaved, just one floor on top of another. The interesting thing about that is that the material that is large, very visible in the archaeological samples from that is coal. They are smithing with coal on a huge scale. The non-visible industrial archaeology there, from the chemical analysis of the soil samples from our first season, shows they're also processing lead on a grand scale there, and there is a lot of waste lead from the site. From this smithing complex, or cut into it, is a rather nice blacksmithing pot. The layout of the smithing area is only exposed. What we did with our excavation is we divided it into two, and we only did the upper deposits on the western side. We took this deeper cut on the eastern side of the trench, which partially takes in areas disturbed in 1924. And the blacksmithing area extends right from the street at the south end, right the way across the area. In the middle of the trench, there is an alleyway running through, marked by the gravel. You can see the edge of it very clearly there. The other edge is here. And the blacksmith's workshop seems to be largely in this area, with the area to the north representing basically ash dumps. And within the southern part of this area, there are a number of features of the smithing workshop. What appears to be a furnace in one area, stone trough from a quenching pit, and you can see the stone trough in situ there, and a series of pits along the back edge of the building in its latest phase, away from the road. What's being produced here is largely unknown, but we have massive quantities of nails and so forth. Some interesting work that's just been completed on the metal used for those nails shows that the sample that have been looked at the iron for them is sourced from all over Roman Britain. And what we suspect is going on here is that this metalworking, which is continuing, it seems to start around the early 2nd century and goes on for perhaps 100 years, is probably industrial scale work that is concerned with the production of metalworking for the Roman army for Hadrian's Wall. And amongst the, sorry I didn't put a picture of it in, but amongst the rather horrible lumps of iron that came out and went into the conservation lab at York Archaeological Trust. We have what appears to be part of a pommel of a sword, which is in iron but is inlaid with silver decoration that has been set into the surface of it. So although the piles of rusting iron that come out of these deposits are unprepossessing, it's quite likely that a number of them relate to production of quite high status objects for the Roman military. Underneath the blacksmithing deposits, we come down onto quite a complicated sequence, and the sequence is now, I think, fully understood. I pointed out the alleyway that runs through the middle of the trench here, which continued through a whole series of phases, and at the southern end of the site, where the most northerly street in the street grid, we took a section through. We've taken a section through the alleyway. And this is where the results from this year become particularly interesting. It now seems clear that both the alleyway and the street grid are laid out subject to proper analysis of the Samian wear sometime in the 80s or 90s, which suggests that the town planning is rather earlier than we previously thought. And what we have is a thing where the street grid's laid out. There's a parallel alleyway to the north, which goes out of use later on. And we can tie the activity associated with the foundation of that alleyway and the street with the development of the street grid. This is where it's now, I think, clear that the forum that we date to 100 to 120 is probably an addition to this, but the street grid itself would appear to be dating 80, 90, 100. As I say, it depends on tying down the detail of the Samian. But this is, if the town plan is as early as I'm beginning to think it is, this significantly changes understanding of what is going on at Aldborough, but also in the Roman north. And that stage of the laying out of the street grid is contemporary with, just to the north, this very fine oven that was put up at the same time. We haven't got samples back from this. I think it is probably a domestic oven rather than industrial, but it beautifully preserved, and I hope you appreciate the wonderful colours of it. That oven and associated deposits overlay a dump deposit in which there are a couple of huge post holes. So the oven is here. These post holes, we've only got, going down into the 1st century, this relatively small area, and the activity here appears to begin in AD 70 or thereabouts. That fits in with the previous information from the town, which is that the earliest deposits are up in the northern part of the town. This is our excavation location, and the later Samian and so forth is extending to the southern part of the town down here. So what we are more or less in the centre of the distribution of this early material, and it's tantalising to know what those post holes represent. The traditional explanation for the development of Aldborough is it starts off as a military site in the 70s. I'm sceptical about that. I suspect myself that this is a trading community that ties in with the exploitation of metalwork in the Pennines, as I said earlier. But these post holes are the earliest structural features we've got from the site, and again the dating of these is going to be crucial in understanding what's going on. But to sort of the icing on the cake this year is that those post holes were cut through a buried soil, which we've sampled for analysis of the soil structure and pollen. And they overlie, when you strip that off, you get this absolutely fantastic pattern of plough marks. There are basically three sets of plough marks. There's a rectangular grid of them, and then there's a diagonal. What is interesting about this is this must be ploughing that is taking place around the time that the town is founded, around about AD 70. What you would normally expect is if it were straightforward arable agriculture, that you would have plough marks going, the same direction or two directions, but relatively irregular as you get year upon year of ploughing taking place. This doesn't seem to fit in with that, and if you look very carefully, these plough marks are pretty well evenly spaced. In fact, they are 30 centimetres, a Roman foot apart. And as I keep saying to people, unless they had a GPS and they could go straight and get all their plough furrows parallel and in train, that must indicate that their ard is on a frame and it's being dragged across. And I suspect that what this represents is the use of some sort of framed ard for clearing the land preparatory to building, rather than clearing the land for agriculture. So I'm fascinated to see what the pollen and soil analysis comes back from that. But it is one of those fantastic images where you are seeing a point in time round about AD 70 where someone is coming in and, I think, clearing the thing for the foundation of the Roman town. You are seeing the moment of the foundation of the Roman town, which is probably a good moment for me to end. We've had a fantastic project at Aldborough, supported by a number of bodies, mainly University of Cambridge and elsewhere, but also Chris Martins. Late Chris Martins was a donor who paid for a lot of the early work on the site. I'm here explaining what we've been doing, but it's teamwork, very much a group, and a great team it's been. So thank you for listening.